Hey guys, I'm Drago, and you probably know that I absolutely love drawing Springtrap. Springtrap here, Springtrap there, Springtrap everywhere. He is probably my favourite FNAF character next to Funtime Freddy, who will probably boil you alive. I just really like Springtrap. I think he's a really cool character, really good design, and I like to draw him a lot. But recently I got thinking, I draw Springtrap a lot, but I kind of neglect the guy that goes along with him a lot, which is Fredbear. You know, you've got Springtrap, who was originally Spring Body, and then next to Spring Body you have Fredbear, you know, the original two animatronics. And I like never draw Fredbear, probably because he doesn't have a really canon design. He has ideas of a design. You've got UCN Fredbear, who is just a recolor of normal Freddy from FNAF 1. You've got the Silver Eyes graphic novel, which also just kind of looks like FNAF 1 Freddy recolored. You've got the two Golden Freddys to kind of give you an idea of it. But unlike Spring Bonnie, where we've now got this official canon design from Steel Wool and their model, there's not been any official model that has definitively said that yes, this is Fredbear in the series. So I thought it'd be fun to try and design him for a video. I hope you guys enjoy my interpretation of Fredbear. And if you do enjoy the video, maybe like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Let's get on with it. So first of all, I wanted to sort of get an idea of what shapes I was going for. There's two ways that Fredbear is sort of designed within the fandom. Well, technically three ways, but I am not counting the sort of fixed up Nightmare Fredbear. It looks ridiculous, I'm sorry, but that is definitely not what he looked like. No way. If this is what you think Fredbear looked like, then you must think this is what the other animatronics look like, which makes no sense. So instead, I looked at the idea of it being original Freddy from FNAF 1, like UCN Fredbear, or being more like Withered Freddy, which lines up within the timeline. So I started off by just sort of analysing their shapes. And what I found in doing these rough sketches is that original Freddy from FNAF 1, he is very round. When drawing him, it's a lot of circles to make up his general shape. He's got a lot of curves. He's just a very sort of round design. On the other hand, Withered Freddy is a lot more square. His muzzle is a lot more squared. His ears sort of have the flat edge. His head is more of a square and his cheeks are less defined. So it's really, you're looking between having Fredbear be quite round and curved, or having Fredbear be more sort of an angular design. After looking at the two and sort of imagining how I've thought of Fredbear in my head, because for a long time I have had this sort of image of him in my head, Withered Freddy was definitely closer to what I was imagining. And I think in the timeline that also makes sense, because FNAF 2 comes before FNAF 1, and then before FNAF 2 you've got Fredbear's Family Diner. So I think in terms of timeline, it makes more sense for Fredbear to have a similar style to Withered Freddy, because it's likely that they made Withered Freddy, or the, you know, unwithered version of Withered Freddy, they made him to sort of fit the bear style of Fredbear, you know, two bears, same style sort of thing, until they deemed they were too ugly and went into what we know Freddy as now in FNAF 1. With all that being said, I didn't want it to just be a clone of Withered Freddy where it's literally just him but recoloured, because that would be Withered Golden Freddy, not, you know, Fredbear. So while I tried to keep it to generally the same sort of style, I had to also think about the spring suit style, and this is why I had Steel Wool Spring Bonnie model as a reference as well here. While I think this Steel Wool design could be way better than it is still the general design for Spring Bonnie. I mean, that is basically Springtrap but fixed up, so you know, it works. It shows you the style that he's supposed to be, even if the execution of it in terms of the model could be a bit better. Like, what is that jaw though? What's happening there? Anyways, in my head, Fredbear has always been big and chunky. In my head, if you put him and Spring Bonnie next to each other, he is bigger than Spring Bonnie, chunkier, you know, taller. Spring Bonnie is a bit of a slimmer design, and it's sort of in terms of the fantasy sort of ideas for the kids, how the company would have thought about it. It's the idea that you've got this big burly chunky bear, and then you've got this sort of a little bit more dainty rabbit as his partner, you know. Gives the two characters a nice contrast to each other. When drawing it though, I almost forgot to do the actual Springlock hands. I forgot I'm not just doing Withered Freddy with the cartoony hands, he's actually got to have the 5 fingers, and later on you'll see me struggling again, that to look right. The other thing that I added was the eye lenses. That's another part of the spring suits. Obviously Spring Bonnie and Springtrap have it. It was basically just trying to get this nice blend of the rough style of Withered Freddy, because that works in the timeline as I said, and the general Springlock suit style. It'd probably be way more obvious how different he is to Withered Freddy if more of his endo is on show, because obviously underneath that you can have all the Springlocks and the Springlock endoskeleton and all that. Not really on show in this drawing. I probably could have made it on show a bit more, but this isn't me making a whole reference sheet. This is just for a bit of fun, you know, one simple draw up. After having finished a sketch, I really wasn't happy with the face. I ended up going in and editing it quite a bit. So one thing I actually did was I moved his muzzle over a little bit, made it look like it was sticking out a bit more. I changed the nose to be a bit more like Springtrap / Springbonnie's nose, rather than the sort of plasticky black nose of the other Freddies. And I decided to make it so his muzzle joins it into his eyes, because that's sort of how I always draw Springtrap and Springbonnie, that the muzzle isn't really this defined, it's sort of connected to the rest of the face. It's not like the other models where it just looks like an extra bit of material that's plastered onto the face. It's part of the contour of the face, if that makes sense. I wanted to make that clear, so after some adjustment, I think I got there with it. And it really started to get to more how I wanted him to be. I even made the jaw a little bit narrower. I know Fredbear is responsible for the bite of 83. I know that he has crushed a child's head in those jaws. But it's still a pretty big jaw, and it's still a pretty powerful jaw. A lot of that power comes within the mechanism itself rather than the size of the jaw. So I decided to make it a little bit narrower just to fit in with the canonic design of Springbonnie as well. When going on to lining, I tried to keep in mind the more angular shape that I was going for. So rather than doing smooth curved lines, I made sure to sort of do my lines in segments. And keeping them segmented like that sort of helped me keep the angular feel of Fredbear. Just sort of chunkier and not as smoothed out as the slightly more modern animatronics that is the original 4 or 5 within FNAF 1. Other than that, my lining style was much the same as I usually do. I think line art is one of the more satisfying parts of drawing, and I've always loved doing these little sort of fainter lines that just define shapes and areas. I don't know why I do it, I don't know why I started doing it, but I just love how it looks, and I guess it's just part of my line art style now. One thing I've been thinking of doing is taking some of my line art and making colouring books for you guys. Colouring books that include my own original illustrations would probably be, you know, I'd probably sell them. But the colouring books involving FNAF illustrations, because I'm sure there's a lot of FNAF fans here that would probably like to try and colour in some FNAF drawings. Those ones I would keep free because it's probably just not fair to sell the FNAF ones. You know, let me know if that's something you'd like, if you'd like me to sort of release some colouring books where it's just my line art and, you know, you guys can download that and just colour it in as you want. Colour it, paint it, whatever you want to do with it. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. We briefly interrupt this video for a message from our sponsor, my Discord server. Very brief, please join it. Link in the description. Just come say hello. Hi, cool, good, let's get on with it. His colours were at least pretty simple to work out. You know, good old gold and yellow bear with the lighter stomach, lighter muzzle, lighter ears, stuff like that. I decided not to make his hat and bow tie the same colour because I thought they're probably two different materials. And also just a really bright purple hat I didn't think was going to work. So while the bow tie is quite a bright, vibrant purple, I kept the hat to be sort of a darker purple just to get the idea of two different sort of materials. You've got the really dark grey for things like the eyebrows and the buttons. You've got the slightly lighter grey for the dark parts of the endo and the even lighter grey for the light parts of the endo. As for his eyelids, I made them sort of a brown colour, that's how I've always imagined it for both of them. And the nose is an even darker brown colour. As usual, the eye lenses I made semi-transparent because they're not a solid thin, they have a little bit of a transparency to them so that the wearer can see through them. And in my head for a while I debated between blue eyes and green eyes. Springbonnie is a green-eyed animatronic, and I thought maybe blue eyes to keep in line with the rest of the Freddies. But then I thought it might be nice for them to have matching eyes actually. You know, I think the green eyes works really well with the yellow colour scheme in general. rest of the piece consisted of a little bit of texturing, not much this time. I just did a general overlay of a simple texture rather than doing it by hand, mainly because this is more of a design mock-up than it is a full detail piece. And then it was just onto shading. I think this is the first video where I've done just sort of my basic, you know, linear style of shading. There's a lot of videos where I've done lots of different variants of my shading. I think this is the first one where I've just sat down and done what I do for shading every single time without thinking about it much. So to explain what I do, first of all I choose what colour shading I want. This time I went for blue because it's just sort of a neutral colour. I start with a darker layer. This layer is usually an overlay layer, and I just do the first lot of rough shading. This is why I just really roughly blot it in without much thought, but you know, refining it and making it detailed, because I'm then going to go in with my blower brush and blow it all out. And then do exactly the same, another overlay layer, really rough, but this time I do it with a lighter tone. This is the rough idea of the highlights. And then once that base shading is in, just to give everything its depth and shape that it needs, to the 3D-ness, I then go in to do the more refined shading. And this is where it really sort of exaggerates the highlights and the shadows. And for this I actually just use my line work brush. It's a simple hard brush with a stabilizer on it so I can keep things controlled, and it does the job. This layer can be a few things, sometimes an overlay layer, sometimes a multiply layer. This time I made it a shade layer because otherwise it wasn't very visible on the teeth in lighter colours, and it just made it a bit more uniform throughout as well. What layers I use really varies piece to piece. Sometimes I will use the blur filter that Paint Tool Side 2 has built in, and I will use that to just ever so slightly soften this shading. But again, that really depends on what piece I'm doing and if it works in the context of that piece, if it's going to look aesthetically pleasing in that piece, because some pieces don't work very well with the really harsh lines of this type of shading. It just kind of feels like you're trying to mix a cartoon cell shading with a more realistic style. So sometimes I'll blur them, sometimes I'll put them in a bit of soft focus, but this time I kept the lines hard and the edges hard because I thought it fit it quite well. And there we have it, that is my version of Fredbear. This was sort of mixing the Withered Freddy style with the spring suit style, and adding a bit of my own flair and style into there as well, especially with how I joined the muzzle, because that's just how I always draw Springtrap and Spin Bonnie, and that's sort of what naturally feels right with it. Down below in the comments, let me know what you guys think of this design right here. Tell me how you might design Fredbear yourself. Tell me if you prefer him to be more like FNAF 1 Freddy, or Withered Freddy, or even Nightmare Fredbear for some reason. Just let me know your thoughts below, I'm really interested to read what you guys think. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Some news, I am working on something very exciting. I can't reveal what it is, but I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to look really cool. That'll be a video coming out probably late next month. But yeah, super excited about it. I can't say anything, but yeah, oh, it's so cool. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Hit that bell and turn on those notifications if you want to know when I upload. You can also join the Discord server for notifications of my new videos as well, and just in general chat with the community and share your art. And with all that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!